Most people think IQ is just a number, but the truth is, your everyday habits are quietly exposing how little you really think. Watch closely, because if you do these things, your brain is failing you. Have you ever noticed how some people drift through their days, endlessly scrolling, flipping between apps, or binging content without even realizing how much time is slipping away? This isn't just a harmless habit, it's a silent sign of a mind that struggles to focus, to think critically, and to engage deeply with the world. Psychology tells us that attention is the currency of intelligence. The more a brain can concentrate, the more it can process, analyze, and create. Those who let distractions dominate their lives are essentially outsourcing their thinking to whatever grabs their fleeting interest. Every scroll, every mindless click, every passive moment is a tiny surrender of cognitive power. It's not just about wasting time. When you live in a constant loop of distraction, your brain adapts. Neural pathways that could have been strengthened for deep thinking, problem-solving, and self-reflection are instead rerouted to chase instant gratification. Dopamine spikes from meaningless stimuli train your mind to crave quick hits over meaningful effort. People with lower intelligence, according to multiple psychological studies, are more prone to this cycle. They seek comfort in the superficial because engaging with complexity feels uncomfortable, even exhausting. It's a subtle, almost invisible erosion of mental capability, happening hour by hour, day by day. Notice the pattern. Those who constantly switch from one thing to another rarely complete a thought, a task, or a project. They are easily overwhelmed by boredom, quickly frustrated by challenge, and perpetually dependent on external stimulation to feel alive. Their minds never settle long enough to analyze, question, or learn from experience. This habit of distraction doesn't just limit productivity, it shapes identity. It trains a person to exist in fragments, never whole, never truly present, never fully aware. Intelligence isn't just knowledge. It's the ability to connect, synthesize, and reflect. And when your attention is scattered like dust in the wind, these capacities wither. Even more insidious is how this habit affects decision-making. The mind conditioned to distraction rarely pauses to weigh consequences. Choices are impulsive, shallow, and reactive. The person doesn't stop to think because thinking takes time, and distraction doesn't allow for patience. A brain that cannot focus cannot reason. It cannot predict outcomes or understand cause and effect on a meaningful level. Everyday decisions, what to eat, who to trust, what to say, become little mirrors reflecting cognitive weakness, and most people never notice. They assume they are just busy or entertained, oblivious that their own habits are revealing the cracks in their mental architecture. It's frightening to realize how ordinary this can look. Sitting on a couch, phone in hand, endlessly swiping. The habit seems innocent, even normal. But psychology shows it is anything but. It is a slow erosion of the mind, a surrender to mental laziness that goes far beyond mere procrastination. Every distraction is a signal. The brain is being trained to remain shallow, impulsive, and easily satisfied. A life filled with such habits is a life quietly confessing a lack of true mental depth. Those who never reclaim their focus will never reach it. They will wander through ideas, experiences, and opportunities without truly grasping any of them. The world moves fast, but the mind that cannot hold attention moves slower still, trapped in the noise it creates for itself. And when the truth finally surfaces, there is no excuse. There is a quiet danger in clinging to beliefs without ever questioning them. It starts subtly, almost innocently, a preference for certainty, a desire to avoid discomfort. But psychology shows that this is one of the clearest signs of a mind that refuses to grow. People with low intelligence often avoid challenging their opinions because doing so would require effort, reflection, and the humility to admit they could be wrong. Instead, they wrap themselves in rigid mental armor, insisting that their views are unassailable. This isn't confidence, it is intellectual stagnation. The refusal to confront one's own misconceptions is a mental trap, a prison built from comfort and fear. Every day, countless decisions are influenced by this refusal to question. Opinions about people, politics, work, and morality are adopted and repeated without examination. the individual convinces themselves that knowing less is safer than learning more. Every unquestioned belief reinforces neural pathways that favor simplicity over complexity, dogma over nuance, certainty over understanding. Psychology shows that cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt, reconsider, and challenge one's assumptions, is a hallmark of intelligence. Its absence is telling. When a person clings stubbornly to what they already know, they are signaling a mind that avoids depth at all costs. The danger grows when this rigidity spreads beyond thought and into behavior. People who never question themselves often fail to learn from mistakes. They see failure not as feedback, but as a threat to their self-image. They surround themselves with people who reinforce their narrow perspectives, shunning dissent and avoiding confrontation with ideas that might disturb the illusion of certainty. Over time, this creates an echo chamber, a mental landscape in which every reflection is a mirror and every opinion is a wall. Their intelligence is trapped, never tested, never expanded. Even the simplest forms of learning become difficult. Curiosity fades because exploration threatens the comfort of pre-existing beliefs. Reading, research, or exposure to new ideas is ignored or dismissed, and intellectual growth stalls. People with low IQ do not necessarily lack potential. They lack the willingness to confront the effort required to evolve mentally. A mind that refuses challenge is a mind that cannot process complexity. It sees the world in black and white, right and wrong, good and bad, never understanding that the richest truths exist in the shadows between extremes. This habit is dangerous not just for the individual, but for the world around them. Decisions made without reflection are often rigid, biased, and short-sighted. Relationships suffer because empathy and understanding require mental flexibility, a willingness to see the world from multiple perspectives. Opportunities are lost because the person cannot adapt or pivot when faced with new information. Every moment spent defending a belief instead of examining it is a moment wasted, a moment that reinforces intellectual weakness. Perhaps the most insidious part is how invisible it feels to the person trapped in this pattern. They are convinced of their own clarity, proud of their steadfastness, never realizing that the true mark of intelligence is not stubbornness, but openness. Every refusal to question, every defense of unexamined beliefs, every moment of blind certainty is quietly eroding their cognitive potential. Their mind becomes predictable, shallow, and fragile, a brittle shell masquerading as strength. The terrifying truth is that few recognize it in themselves. They mistake rigidity for wisdom, certainty for intelligence, and ignorance for safety. But the mind that never questions is a mind already lost, drifting further from understanding with every unexamined thought. Certainty is weakness. Neglecting your mental and emotional well-being may seem like laziness or a minor oversight, but psychology reveals a far darker truth. A mind that ignores its own needs, that refuses to nurture itself intellectually and emotionally, is quietly exposing its weaknesses. Intelligence is not simply about memory or knowledge. It is about understanding, managing, and integrating the complex interplay of thought, feeling, and consequence. Those who consistently neglect this are not just careless, they are mentally underdeveloped. They leave their minds exposed to chaos, unable to process, reflect, or adapt. Consider the everyday choices: skipping sleep, avoiding reflection, refusing to challenge oneself intellectually, or numbing emotions with distractions. These actions might seem trivial in isolation, but they accumulate, eroding the mind's resilience. Neuroscience shows that chronic neglect of emotional regulation and cognitive growth weakens the brain's capacity to handle stress, make rational decisions, and think critically. The person who ignores their inner world slowly becomes a passenger in their own life, reacting rather than directing, drifting rather than navigating. Every skipped moment of self-care, every refusal to reflect, every unchallenged belief chips away at the foundation of thought itself. What makes this habit particularly insidious is its invisibility. Society often celebrates productivity over introspection, action over contemplation. But intelligence requires more than doing. It requires thinking, understanding, and feeling in harmony. When someone ignores these elements, the consequences are subtle but profound. Relationships falter because empathy requires emotional awareness. Decisions fail because reasoning requires reflection. Opportunities slip away because growth requires learning and adaptation. A mind that does not nurture itself cannot grasp the depth of life. It drifts shallowly, content with noise, incapable of real insight. Even more telling is the attitude toward challenge. People who neglect their mental and emotional well-being often avoid anything that threatens their comfort. They refuse introspection because it is painful, avoid learning because it requires effort, and suppress emotion because it is inconvenient. Every avoidance reinforces cognitive weakness, teaching the brain that growth is optional and discomfort must be feared. Over time, this creates a feedback loop. The mind that could have expanded, adapted, and thrived instead atrophies, constrained by its own neglect. Daily life is littered with these quiet betrayals of intellect. Ignoring mental hygiene leads to forgetfulness, poor judgment, and shallow reasoning. Emotional neglect produces impulsivity, mood swings, and social conflict. Intellectual laziness fosters rigidity, superficiality, and a fear of complexity. Individually, these may seem manageable, but together they form a pattern that psychology identifies as a strong predictor of lower intelligence. It is not always visible to the outside world, but it is undeniable to the mind itself. A slow erosion, a constant weakening from within. The tragedy is that this is entirely preventable. The mind is malleable, capable of growth, adaptation, and profound understanding. Sleep, reflection, emotional awareness, and intellectual challenge are not optional luxuries. They are necessities for a functioning, intelligent mind. Those who refuse them, whether out of habit, convenience, or fear, are not just missing out. They are actively sabotaging their own mental potential. Every ignored thought, every suppressed emotion, every avoided challenge is a choice to remain weak. Eventually, the consequences become undeniable. The mind that cannot care for itself cannot thrive. Complexity is avoided, reflection is ignored, and depth is lost. The person who neglects themselves is quietly revealing the limits of their own intelligence, a limit that no external measure can disguise. Neglect is fatal. The truth is ruthless. Your habits are not harmless. Every choice, every distraction, every refusal to think, question, or care for your mind is writing the story of your own limitations. Intelligence isn't hidden, it's exposed. And if you keep surrendering to these patterns, your mind will betray you.